And we're live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the last session for this season of NextGen Heroes with the topic of NextGen Spotlight, the Rod Trent journey. So, as you all know, finally, we're having our best session of the season with the one and only Rod Trent. It's a very special guest that we're having today with us, and we're really glad that he's gonna uh, take the stage together with us, and we're going to have an amazing discussion about his life journey, about his work, and about everything he has done in his life. So, Rod, welcome again, and we are very glad to have you here.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, thank you. So before we go on with the discussion and having the roundtable talk, I'll just quickly go through our agenda of the day. So as per usual, we have our introduction. So for everyone who is joining us for the first time, you'll get the chance to meet us. Nicholas will explain something about Microsoft Learn and our proudest partner, Microsoft Zero to Hero, and how you can join us. Then we have our special guest, of course. And finally, we'll have a Q&A. So if you have any question that you would like to ask Trent, feel free to drop it in the chat. We'll be the ones who will answer that together with Rod. So something about me. So hello, everyone, again. My name is Bojan Ivanovski. I'm currently a master's student at Barcelona Technology School in AI and Big Data. Also a proud Microsoft student ambassador, almost 2.5 years in the program. Awarded the gold title, and of course, an Azure AI enthusiast. For me, the Azure AI Foundry is definitely my playground, and I really enjoy doing projects in it. So that was something short about me. Now it's time for Nicholas.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Nicholas. I'm 22 years old, Microsoft MVP in the area of Microsoft Intune. I love doing blogging about Intune, speaking about Intune at events. And then I'm a part of this community with Bojan and Marco. So yeah, looking forward to the session today. So in order to start off today's session, we will just quickly touch base on some information about Microsoft Learn. As many of you already might know, we are part of Microsoft Zero to Hero, where we are around 6,000 members together in the community. So it's a great chance to you to get involved, but also engage with the community members as well. And apart, of course, from Microsoft Zero to Hero, there is also other communities available as well. So that might be something that fits your passion as well. And lastly, Microsoft Learn is a great place to start when you want to start your learning journey, whether it's Intune or it's AI or it's security. So for more information, take a look at aka.ms/Microsoft Learn community.
And yes, finally, we get to the most interesting part of the session. And we're going to open the floor now. So we'll start with Rod. So, Rod, the first thing that I wanted to ask you was, how did this journey start? What was the first thing that came into your mind when you were young and you said, okay, this is the job that I want to do. This is the things that I want to accomplish in life. So what was it?
That's a good question. I think I'm going to give you an answer that you don't want to hear. I started out life wanting to be a forest ranger. I started out life wanting to be a lawyer. I remember, when I was super young and not really knowing what life was about, thinking, I'll do this or I'll do that. And to be honest, other than playing video games early on, I thought nothing else about computers or security or any of that stuff. It was not on my radar, to be honest. I intended to go to college and be an architect. That was where I was headed. Life sort of took over. I didn't go down that route or that journey. I ended up going to a small business college and got into basic programming. And then I got into COBOL programming, and I thought that was just like the neatest stuff. So I guess in reality, I started out as a programmer or a developer or builder or whatever you want to call it these days. And that led to some other things. It got me acclimated to using a computer, and I saw the benefit. I think early on, some of the other uses for computer that I had, I wrote things, which kind of helps with my, my role today as we, build documentation and things for the Microsoft products that we utilize. But being able to write, um, using the written word, um, very shortly after, I found the woman of my dreams, and we got married, and then we had a kid, and I realized that this computer thing that I was doing beyond games and a little bit of development at that point, but the writing, I had to do something more with it, or at least I had to do whatever I needed to do to support my family, right? So we laughed and we joked about this, Nicholas, before we kicked off the recording. But my first actual computer job outside of the things that I did on my own was sales, selling computers at a computer store. When compatible computers started becoming a big thing, right? IBM controlled the personal computer space for such a long time outside of Mac, and then they allowed compatible computers, and so those kind of took off. Microsoft developed DOS and things like that that people could use and utilize computers. So it was, yeah, I was a salesperson. I was selling computers. Was I super proud of it at the time? Not really, but again, it gave me the opportunity to become even more experienced with utilizing computers because obviously we'd have customers come in and want to buy a computer, whether it was a business or personal, and want to understand what they could do with it. So I had to actually know, and that's a lot of what I do these days as well. When I talk to customers, they'll ask questions that I have to be able to answer. So I actually dig in real deep, hands on with our products, so that when customers ask me questions, I have good answers or I have the right answers. And that's I think generally what led me kind of the next steps early in my career. After selling computers, I worked for a computer rental company uh, because I worked on computers literally every day at that point. We built a service center for computers, and I ran that for a long time. And then that led me to work for, at the time, it was one of the top 5 accounting firms. It's Deloitte now. It used to be Deloitte and Touche, and there are a few other ones. And I ended up running their SMS infrastructure globally. I don't know if you're familiar with SMS. Probably people listening to this have no clue what that is, other than maybe it's some kind of texting thing. But in the early days, it was Microsoft Systems Management Server, which today is essentially Intune. But back in the day, it was SMS. Customers joked that it was called slow moving software because it did move pretty slow at the time, just based on the infrastructure that we had available to us at the time. But that's what really allowed me to get deeper into, I guess you would say, the technology world, more so than just computers at that point. Now, this whole brand new world had been opened up in front of me, and I'm like, I really dig this stuff. And I just really got into it, really loved being able to take um, something that no one else could seem to get and figure it out and just be that person for that thing, whether it was SMS or whatever happened to come next. So that's kind of the beginning. But like I said, I don't think it's the answer you wanted. I never intended to go down this path. And in fact, even during my career, I've thought many times, I'm going to go do something else. And you know what? I still think that. And to be honest, I've had a really long and awesome career, but I still feel like I've not figured out what I'm going to do or what I want to do with my life. And I think that really kind of speaks to my personality in that uh, I like to work with the new stuff. I like to figure the new stuff out. I'm not complacent. I don't sit around and just become comfortable with what I'm doing at the time. I'm always kind of looking 2 or 3 steps ahead to figure out where I need to be.
So you talked a little bit about the things that you were considering before going into programming. How did you deal with that uncertainty, like around what you wanted to do?
How did I deal with
Because
it?
yeah,
Yeah,
because I think many today starts off by study something and then they realize that this might not be the path for me, and then they
Exactly.
end up going into another path.
yeah. I believe obviously there's some value in planning and setting the steps ahead of you. Um, I've obviously I'm jealous of the people that can do that. But I think for my life, maybe it's weird to say so, but I've never really put a lot of effort into that planning for my own career or my own life. It's again, it's trying to think 2 or 3 steps ahead. Where should I be in the next year? And then I'll follow whatever path. I'm not building that path myself. I'm just kind of following the signs. So I've been super blessed in my life, particularly for my career and family and relationships as well, of again, kind of following where the steps lead and then just adapting once I get there and enjoying what it is that I'm doing. So it's not necessarily that I went to school for this and I studied this, because to be honest, I graduated college with a physics major. I'm not doing that. Um, I have that knowledge. I enjoy it. It helps with my sci-fi fiction writing, but um, yeah, I do nothing about that in my daily job. It does, I think, or at least it did. I have more of an engineering brain where I can look at something and figure out how that thing works and kind of see the intricate details and see what if I took this thing out, what would, how would that stop working? I think early on in my career, I mentioned um, working for a service center and managing that service center. That was really kind of the details of that was people would bring us broken things and we would have to figure out how to make that thing work. Well, why is it not working? Right? You figure that out, use that engineering brain, and then determine how to make that thing work for those people.
Interesting. For me, the things that you mentioned that you lived through. So basically, it's the birth of the first computer, then the internet, and now, of course, AI. So how have all these things reshaped your thoughts, reshaped your thinking, and especially, was there a moment in your early career, let's say, when you did something that you were really proud of, like using all of these technologies?
Well, I think it's less about using those technologies. I think it's more so about supporting those technologies. It's I don't know how many people are aware. In the early days of the internet, there were not communities, right? So when I first started computers, we had BBSs. People dialed up in modems and went to these sites and they played games or they downloaded software. It was shareware and freeware at the time. Um, and they would have message boards. You leave a message, somebody come back and respond, and there were ways, but it was not real time. So when the internet actually created an opportunity where people could actually respond almost in real time with each other, whether it was through email, but I'm thinking mostly web-based forums. So early on, when the internet started becoming more of a thing beyond America Online or AOL, whatever you want to call it, when people could just go to a website and participate. I worked for a website called swynk.com, swynk.com. I wrote SMS support articles for that site. Um, I remember being at the Microsoft Management Summit, the original MMS, and getting an email from the person that actually owned the site, Stephen Wynkoop, which is what the site was named after. Um, that the site was going to be bought out by internet.com. And I thought, what am I going to do? How am I, what am I going to do here? So I actually partnered with a company that many people might remember called Altiris. I think some people still probably use their software. Symantec acquired them at one point. And I went and partnered with Altiris to create a site called myitforum.com. And that was the largest and most popular community Microsoft driven website and community for years and years and years, which as part of that website, we created the original MMS, the original, which was called the Microsoft Management Summit. At the time, it was called the Windows 2000 and SMS Users Group Conference. And eventually it was turned over to Microsoft 2002, something like that. But prior to that MMS, it was actually a community owned and run conference. But I think about my proudest moments, that's probably one of my proudest moments, was building that community, because a lot of what you see in communities today, Experts Live, the conference, which before that was the System Center User Conference. Was that what it was called? I forget now, but and then MMS and Tech Ed and things like that were all driven from those early days of building that MyIT forum at the beginning of kind of the web-based forums and the internet and stuff like that. So a lot of what you see today as far as communities go would actually came from that. So I'm super proud of that. It's I've noted throughout my life that the best things that I have done have been unintentional. Did I go out to create this really fabulous, popular, massive community? No, I just wanted to support SMS because there were so many Microsoft customers that felt like they had support, did not have support. If anybody has ever used SMS in the early days, 1.x, we joke about it, but it seemed like someone from Microsoft went home on the weekend, put together this piece of software. Somebody at Microsoft liked it, and they said, let's give it to customers. And because there was no support, the initial versions were horrible, but the idea was there. The idea and the opportunity to build something really cool, which we see in Intune today. That's where it came from. But there was so many people using this piece of software, and there was no support. There was very little documentation. So we built a community around that, and that grew from there because, all Microsoft customers wanted that level of support for their products as well.
That's quite interesting. So now we've talked a little bit about of the early days in your career. We've talked a little bit about of the community. So it's no secret, Rod, that you are also part of Microsoft today.
Yep.
And it's quite interesting because I think that a lot of people have started at Deloitte that are at Microsoft today, right? I think I think that's that's actually a place that many people have been to as well. But
Yeah.
how did you move on from Deloitte until Microsoft, and how did you get into Microsoft originally?
So I think anyone that is a raving fan of Microsoft, whether you're an MVP or you're a customer that loves Microsoft products, I think for many people it is a goal. I want to work for Microsoft. I work with, may not know this, but I am the MVP program lead for security MVPs, right? So I talk to security MVPs all the time. And in fact, they're like, hey, I would love to work for Microsoft. I'll, submit those recommendations and their resume and talk to the hiring manager and stuff like that for them. Because I believe for those people, their ultimate goal is to work for Microsoft. I need to do that sometime in my life. That's a goal. That's what I want to do. And just like that, I was the same way. I always wanted to work for Microsoft. I always wanted to be part of that organization for the products that I loved and I worked with literally every single day. The other cool thing about it was I was thinking, man, I get the inside track. I get to figure out what's going on. I get to see the roadmaps. That would be cool. Obviously, once you get here, you can't tell anybody about all that stuff, but still you get to see it, right? I can't tell unless you've signed an NDA. I can't really talk to you about all of the roadmaps and stuff like that, but still it's kind of cool. But I had submitted applications many times over my career to work for Microsoft. And every time that they said yes, it required me to move to Redmond. And I thought that's just the silliest thing in the world. A company that creates software that allows their customers to work remotely, they won't allow their employees to also work remotely. And it just never worked out for us because uh, we're where we're at here in Southwest Ohio. We have built a life here around that family, around, I have kids, mom and dads, things like that. It's just really super difficult for us. And it always has been to move from here, just for family reasons in general, right? Once you set down roots, it's really difficult to pick up and go somewhere else. And you really have to kind of weigh the pros and cons behind that. And that's what we did. Um, but it got to, what year was it? I guess it was 2019, prior to just before COVID. There was finally opportunities at Microsoft that had opened up that they would allow you to work remotely, and it was, field positions. And I said, I thought, well, it's time. I need to do this before my career is over. I need to go work for Microsoft. Um, and guess what? My resume was rejected immediately. You know why? Because the recruitment process is broken. You have to know somebody. A good friend of mine, um, I sent him a message. He said they discarded your resume. I said, yeah. And so he actually got really mad and went to the hiring manager and said, if you don't hire this guy, I'm going to quit. And so they hired me. Right. Yeah, it worked out. Wow. But it really does. Which is actually kind of interesting. I built a new site. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but I built a new site and a service recently called Pass the Bots. The reason why these resumes keep getting rejected and pushed out is because we are, as humans, used to creating resumes that are super pretty and they have pictures and they're functional because your experience is doing these interviews in person. But these interviews that are done through the recruitment process of most organizations these days, they're all through online, and there's a bot that actually reads that resume, right? So it will discard that resume if it can't read it. And a lot of the times people don't get to the interview phase just because their resume doesn't work extremely well. And it's not readable by those bots. It's not because they're not a good person, not because they're not experienced and have the proper experience. It's just because they can't write resumes for the AI world these days. So that's the reason why I created that service recently. But so yeah, now I work at Microsoft. All of those things I thought prior to joining Microsoft are absolutely true. It's the best job that I've ever had in my life. I sometimes kick myself that I didn't just join earlier and then just deal with the repercussions and figure out how to move and things like that. Obviously, life doesn't work that way. You just have to do with what you're granted, right, and what you're given. And so we did that. But yes, working for Microsoft is absolutely amazing. It's a wonderful organization, wonderful company, a lot of support. Obviously, it's just like anywhere else. You have good managers and you have bad managers, but at Microsoft, they give you the opportunity to, whatever role it is that you're in, to make it your role, make it what, Rod Trent, what he would do in this role versus, very strict guidelines and processes. This role absolutely does this and nothing else. They give you that creativity. Since I'm a creative person, I really absolutely love that. But yes, and it was interesting too, because right after I joined 2019, what happened at the end of 2019 and the beginning of 2020, it was COVID and everything was locked down. So Microsoft went from enabling employees to work remotely to enabling all employees to have to work remotely. And so we did that for the next year and a half, right? So that actually worked out pretty well. I started in the field at Microsoft, loved working there, worked on Microsoft Sentinel. That was the first thing that I worked on when I joined Microsoft. Microsoft Sentinel just released the last part of 2019. I was the very first person at Microsoft to start delivering that to customers. That worked out extremely well for me. Eventually, I took another role at Microsoft in advocacy. spent a lot of time on the road, going to conferences and speaking and things like that. But now I am a product manager within MTP and specifically in our communities for the threat protection areas and threat intelligence. I work with those types of products every day, and I work with our community every day. We have what's called in Microsoft the Security Advisor Program. Some people listening may not realize that we rebranded in January this year to Security Advisors Program. It used to be called CCP, or Customer Connection Program, but it's now Security Advisors. It's literally the same thing, where we invite customers to sign NDAs and be part of this large community. We have a little over 18,500 now people that are a part of this program, customers that participate, and they get early access to our products. And all we ask that they provide is just they provide feedback for us, so that we build the products that they want to use versus the old ways of doing things, where Microsoft builds products that we think our customers want to use. So I think that's how we have done such a great job in the last 10 years or so, building Microsoft into an organization that is considered one of the top security firms, software security firms in the industry. 10 years ago, if you said Microsoft and security in the same sentence, people would just laugh you out of the room. But these days, everybody knows Defender, everybody knows Sentinel, right? It's actually a really good story.
So you currently you're working as a senior product manager at Microsoft, right?
Yes.
So can you explain us how this one typical day at the office looks like?
How typical day in the office looks like. It really depends on the time of year, to be honest, and what's coming up. For example, it is June. The end of our fiscal year is at the end of this month. So a lot of the things that are going on that normally happen with the products, new private previews, new roadmap items, they are now just in the planning phase. Normally, after the fiscal year starts back up, and we prepare for things like Ignite, when we want to talk about releases of new features and new products and new parts of products and things like that. My day will be looking at notifications that have come in from our various product teams who want to build a private preview that will last maybe 6 to 8 weeks or something like that, where we can get customers enlisted and involved to test these products and provide that feedback. So a lot of my day is actually building those programs for those specific features around things like AMAs, Teams meetings, surveys, the whole process of building a product from private preview through to public preview through to launch. So it like I said, it varies. Every day is just a little bit different, and every feature and product and every engineer or every product manager that you work with is a little bit different, and they work a little bit differently. So there's a lot of give and take and a lot of adjustment and adaption as we go along, and just trying to identify the best ways to get these private previews in front of the customers and get them engaged, so that they see what we're trying to do, and then we see what they want us to do. So like I said, I can't give you like a minute by minute, play by play of my day, because it changes. And that's what I love about it, because to be honest, if it was the same old boring thing every single day, I would be bored and I would try to go do something else. But that's why I love this job, is because every day is absolutely different.
So I think the other parts as well of your job as well is going to conferences, speak at conferences. We met at a conference as well, right?
Yep.
So that's also a big part of your job, right?
It is. Well, that's a skill set that I have developed over the years. And again, that this role that I am in, this is how I've kind of sort of made it my own. People on my team don't do that. They don't have that skill set, or they're not comfortable doing that thing. But I've probably spoken at 3 or 4 conferences a year for 30 years. So I have a lot of expertise and a lot of experience with that. And I love to do it. it is so much better, and you know this, Nicholas, so much better to be in front of people telling a story or talking about a product or talking about a feature and then seeing their eyeballs and seeing how they react versus doing a webinar and not really understanding what the audience is thinking. I prefer that because you're in front of people and you see that something's resonating. So I'll hover there for a little bit. I'll expound on whatever that thing is so that I understand that they are getting what I'm trying to get across. Right. So, something I've done very specifically over the past 2 or 3 years of speaking at conferences, I've gone from wanting to be kind of that primary or keynote type speaker to supporting others, because I think that's where I'm kind of at in my career, and that's how I kind of want to give back, the MVP program and things like that. But so what I do is, and I love this with the Midwest Management Summit because there's always like 2 speakers per session. So I will find those individuals who maybe it's their first time speaking, or maybe, they're kind of new to it, or maybe they're not comfortable with an area or a product or a piece of the product or something like that. And I'll go in and I'll help them with that session. It's not my session. It's not my responsibility for that session, but I will help with that to kind of mentor them in the ability to deliver good sessions. Because at the end of the day, one of these days it's going to happen. I'm not going to go to conferences and speak anymore. And I want to kind of build that next generation that's going to be able to carry that on.
A topic that we touched just a bit, but I think it's very popular right now, and everybody is talking about it. It's AI. So, what do you think will happen in the next 3 to 5 years? How will AI shape the IT industry? And also, because you're in the area of security at Microsoft, how do you see AI evolving in this field?
So you did say next 5 years, didn't you?
Yeah, 3 to 5
I
years.
think that is, and I read blog posts and articles from like people who say they're CISOs and CEOs and stuff like this constantly. And they say, this is where we're going to be in 5 years. And I just laugh. Nobody knows. I'm going to tell you that right now. If you can tell me where we're going to be in 6 months, you're my hero. This is a day-to-day thing. If you look at what is happening in AI right now, every model leapfrogs the other model every week, right? Anthropic had Mythos, and then they had to pull it back because everybody said there was fear mongering. Everybody said it was too scary. Then they just released that like Mythos Lite this week, and then they had to pull that back. Copilot, Microsoft has Copilot. Grok is becoming super powerful. Google is interesting. I always thought Google would maybe lead a little bit, but I think they're kind of falling behind, to be honest. But it doesn't matter. They're all kind of working off the same, almost like the same playbook. They leapfrog each other every week. They're working so hard on these things. Somebody will release this thing, and then 2 days later, another company will release that same thing. It's almost like, I don't know, there's some back channel somewhere where everybody's reading the same bulletin board. This is what's next in AI. I think AI is awesome. I think it has some really big benefits from an efficiency and from workload and efficiency for workload, that perspective. It's going to be an extreme help to everyone. From a security perspective, I believe that there are certain aspects of security, those manual, mundane tasks that we do in security, that AI will be able to do that for us. One of the first things that I think of, some sessions that we talked about sessions and speaking, some sessions that I've developed recently that I've been going to different conferences and talking about, is getting rid of triage. Triage is that part of the security or security operations center process where you literally, as an analyst, look at the signals that have come in the past, say, 24 hours or less, and trying to identify if there's some signals in there that might be potentially nefarious or impactful, critically impactful to your environment. And considering how many logs that we have connected to our security operations centers, those signals can be in the thousands, more than that, right? How can one single person or a team, even a team of human eyeballs, look at these and determine and make that determination over time? Yeah, you're going to build that experience and that skill set. Like, I know that this is an issue. I'm going to go check this thing out. We do some things even with Microsoft Sentinel prior to AI that helps with that, that builds alerting around those things. It helps, but still you're going to get multiple alerts. You're never going to get it pared down to just one. So that is a huge part of security or security operations centers these days. It takes a lot, I think, unnecessary time. You can take AI and AI agents that actually look at those signals in real time as they come in. And by the time that individual comes in at 8 o'clock in the morning, that analyst AI already has the answer for you. Here's the 10 things that you need to look at right now, because we've identified that this is an actual thing, instead of having to go through all that stuff at once. So to me, I think the triage piece should just go away, and we should allow our AI agents to take care of that piece. We still need humans in the loop, and it's kind of that human reasoning, how to react to those, because what if it happens to be a false positive and it's our CEO who is preparing a sales presentation that day for a huge customer, right? And AI, it has no feelings. It's going to say, this looks like an issue. We've seen this before. I'm shutting this account down. Your CEO is on a flight somewhere. He lands at the customer site, tries to pull up this PowerPoint presentation. He's locked out of his account because AI decided that he's a bad guy, right? So there has to be some human stuff in there for that reasoning, to be able to ensure that we're not shutting down the business. So there's still some aspects to that. So where might we be? I as a science fiction writer, I'll tell you where I want to be. I grew up watching Star Trek, and I've thought for years, why don't we have these things already? Obviously, like communicator, we have cell phones and things like that. Still don't have the transporter. I think that's probably unrealistic, but anyway, because everybody's seen the movie Fly, right? That's just not going to work. But what I want out of AI, I want physical AI. I want my own droid. I want a droid in my house that does those things for me, like folding laundry. That's like the triage component of home ownership. I don't want to have to fold laundry anymore. Shouldn't we have a robot that does that for us? But to be honest, I think that's where we're headed. If you ask me for the next 5 years, I think that's where we're going to be with AI. It's going to be some physical form somewhere that does menial tasks for humans. Not necessarily that it makes us what's that movie where all those that little boxy robot that collects the flour. It's like a Disney cartoon, and all the people are stuck in those. Yeah, Wall-E. Where all the people are stuck in those hover chairs and stuff because they don't have to do anything anymore. I don't think it's going to make us like that, but I think it's going to improve our lives. Because to be honest, if I didn't have to fold my laundry, I'd probably be developing some code or something, and that would make me more efficient.
Yeah. So it's interesting with AI. It's evolving pretty quickly, and I think it's some good thoughts. Hopefully, it will help us fold our laundry in the future. But yeah, you never know. So we just have a few questions left. So basically, for this part, we would like to dive a little bit into the next generation. So you've talked a little bit about helping the next generation. So what advice would you give to a student or to a person that just came into IT who basically just feel overwhelmed on how fast things are moving?
It's difficult, I think, and I really feel for this generation, to be honest, because things are moving extremely quickly. In my lifetime, things have moved extremely quickly, but right now it is so fast. It's even hard for me as a product manager at Microsoft to stay up to date. And I tell you, to be honest, that's my hardest job right now, is trying to figure out what exactly it is that we're doing and how we're reacting to market changes and things like that, right? So I feel for students. I think at the end of the day, there's two things that I would suggest to kind of stay on top. Well, three things to stay on top of all this. Number one, learn to code. Yes, we have things like Claude Code and things like that that can write some pretty nifty things for you, develop some cool things. But at the end of the day, there has to be a human in place to determine that if that code X, if that code developer isn't trying to create something that's going to destroy the rest of the code in the world, there has to be someone. I'm being silly there, but there has to be. You have to understand the code. I go back to the KQL query language, right? It was a necessity when KQL first became a thing to learn KQL and learn how to query that language. Over time, you don't, because of AI and because things like Visual Studio Code and things like that can produce some really good KQL queries. You don't necessarily need to know how to do them from scratch anymore, but you still need to have an understanding of what that query looks like and if it's going to produce the exact results that you were looking for. Because a lot of times the code, because of the hallucination, which is an actual feature of generative AI, which is what makes it more human-like and creative, it will produce sometimes what it wants to versus what you expected it to. So again, going back to coding and developing, you want to understand how to code. Things like Python, what are some other things? PowerShell's still a thing, right? PowerShell's still important, particularly for the IT pro. I actually develop and script more in Python now than I do in anything, just because it has sort of become the de facto standard language for AI. The next thing I would do would be to invest a little time and identify trusted, and I quote unquote, trusted sources of information about what's coming and what's proposed in the industry for AI. That's really the only way that you can keep up. Somebody somewhere is writing about that thing. And when I say trusted sources, I don't mean just your general news organizations or Microsoft even. Find those other developers that are developing things and sharing their knowledge. That's where you want to get, that's how you want to stay up to date on all this stuff. Find someone that's willing to share their knowledge and consume it. You know, whether it's in a newsletter, it's an RSS feed. Yes, RSS feeds and email still does exist. And so one of the, whatever vehicle it is, identify it and keep up to date on that. But I think the third thing, and probably the most important, and particularly as we go further and further with AI, is to make that human connection. Not just somebody's blog that's sharing what they believe is going to happen or sharing their code, but these in-person events, sitting down at a round table with like-minded individuals and picking their brain and asking where they're going, what their organization is doing, what is important and critical to them. That's the only way we could truly understand how to develop and how to lead and how to navigate the future of AI. Because honestly, one day one human's just going to pull the plug and those data centers just go offline and there's no more AI, right? That's all it takes. But it's that human connection. So find, as a student, find someone you respect, ask to mentor, ask to set up one-on-one sessions, whether it's in person or, over a Teams call. And spend that half hour maybe once a month to pick that person's brain, ask them what they're doing. I offer myself often to a lot of our MVPs to do that one-on-one discussion about what I'm doing and what I think and where I want to go and things like that. It's super rewarding to be a mentor, but find those trusted people. I believe that you feel comfortable having those discussions with.
Also, a very important question that I have received from many students and also many of my colleagues, friends that are currently, let's say, students or like either starting their career or just about to start their career. The thing they all mention is currently the market is so like tough.
Yeah.
it's they have many problems when it comes to applying to jobs, and um, they being accepted by the companies, and then start to work there. So the main question is, what kind of advice, or let's say a tip, would you give to the students and the next generation,
Yeah.
for landing their first job? Because we all know how hard it is nowadays to get a job when you're just a novice or a beginner at these technologies. And with AI especially now, how much do companies um, offer
Hmm.
and give to students, and they just simply say, okay, this is I cannot achieve this level, and when I'm a beginner, I have only
Yeah.
1 or 2 years of experience, and they're asking me for 5 years experience, and also for me to be like 20 years old, and
Yeah.
some kind of those things.
Well, and not just that. I think it makes me laugh. And you've probably seen this too. You go out to LinkedIn sometimes and you see these job descriptions, and it says requirements 10 years with AI, 10 years with generative AI. And you're
Yeah.
like, what? It's not, yeah. It's not realistic. You can tell those organizations, it's probably the organizations you want to stay away from, to be honest. If they don't even know how to write a requisition for a job description, then they probably have no clue. You'd probably do well there because you'd be the only one that knows about AI.
Yeah.
But still, I think thinking back on my career and my school, and also my own kids. I have 4 kids. My oldest is what is he, 33 now? Yeah. Um, so my own kids, one of the things that I would really highlight as something anyone should do is make the effort and take the time. A lot of these universities and schools have uh, um, job, um, what do you call them? Losing, yeah, gone blank here, but have opportunities to set you or give you those opportunities within those organizations that they partner with to intern for 6 to 8 months. I don't know if any of you have done that, but to be
Yeah.
honest, I personally did not take advantage of that myself, and I really wish that I did because I did not. I had to work extra hard on my own to get where I am today, or get that first job, or do that first thing. And a lot of times um, I had to do jobs that maybe I didn't want to do just to get to that additional job, right? Um, my oldest son, I mentioned, is 33. I think he did something very similar where he thought, I'm going to graduate my 4-year degree college and I've got this degree and people are just going to love me and I'm going to get this job.
Exactly.
But to be honest, it took quite a while for him to get to that point because he did not take advantage of those services that those schools offered. And I would absolutely, anyone, I would tell them to see what they offer and take advantage literally of every one of them. Because that's going to get you in the door as an intern, and you're going to learn that role and you're going to learn that job and how um, organizations actually operate. Because I think that's where the disconnect is. Um, People that graduate college, you graduate because you were good at what? College. You weren't good in the workplace. You were good at college. You were good at working around exams, cramming the night before, and things like that. And but they had no experience in the workplace potentially, unless they had a job to pay for college or whatever. But they had no experience, at least in that role or that thing that they graduated for, that with that degree. So it's about that disconnect of then going to an organization, then trying to figure out how it works. That's why it's so important to take advantage of those services, because you get in that organization, you figure out how people interact, you figure out how a business actually works and what they expect of employees. So again, just take advantage of those.
I think also an important part as well that I can share from my journey is that, if you have, money to go to a conference or if you have or know someone that hosts a conference, typically those conferences will also offer students a free pass as well. Go to the conferences, talk with people, network, get a network, connect with people, because in most cases they know other people, or they might know someone that have a job for you. At least that's something that has helped me in my journey as well.
And you might get to experience your first Wahlburgers hamburger.
Exactly. That's a good one. Yeah.
There's a good story there. Nicholas and I think we met at what was it, MMS, like 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
Yeah, I think 2 or 3 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. First time, and I took him to Wahlburgers, the best hamburger.
Yeah. So, just a final question. So, what keeps you motivated after reaching what you've done today?
Let me tell you a story. I am super competitive, and you don't even see it today because I've personally kind of tamped it down a little bit. Let me tell you how competitive I am. And this is what drives me, to be honest. I want to be the best at whatever that thing is that I'm doing. 2 stories. Number 1, my oldest son that I mentioned, early on in his life, I used to play video games, when I was a young parent, and him and I would play like Mario Kart or Mario or whatever, play on the Nintendo. And I am so competitive, I would never allow him to win ever. I was good. I mean, I can't do it these days, but I was good. And I remember the day that I was playing with him and he got so frustrated and so upset that he just dropped the controller and left the room crying. And that was the first time I was absolutely affected by that. Right. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, really kind of tore me up. So I went on kind of this personal journey of trying to figure out how not to be as competitive or take myself out of competitive situations where it might harm someone else or make someone else feel bad. I actually, at that point, stopped playing board games because, again, I am super competitive. When I sit down with my family, I would do whatever it took to win that game, no matter what. So it can be really negative. But in my career, it's a super positive. Because again, I want to be that person. I'm not going to step over somebody these days because I remember that lesson from my son. I'm not going to step over someone to get to where I need to be or where I think I need to be. But I am highly competitive in that I want to be that person that people look to and ask those questions about generative AI or AI development or AI coding or security or whatever that thing happens to be. So it is a highly competitive thing. I'm also a runner. I've run every day for over 11 and a half years. And when I first started running, I was super fast and I could beat anybody. I could beat people, half my age. But as I started getting older, because I'm super competitive, I had to take myself out of that competitive situation. I stopped running those 5Ks because people started beating me and it made me feel bad. And then I started running the ultras because at that point you're really just competing against yourself. So I take myself out of those competitive situations, but I focus it where it's important, where it's valuable in my life and where it actually provides some impact for other people.
That's a wonderful story that you've shared with us, and I really hope that this stream afterwards will be watched by a lot of people, especially a lot of young people, because every session that we do here is basically meant for young people or young professionals, Microsoft enthusiasts especially. So I think this is actually very, very inspiring for a person who started from zero and went to hero. So definitely, Trent, I would like to say it was an honor to have you here. Really, it's not that common to have the senior product manager of Microsoft here with us today and explaining his life story and also his career successes and everything related to that. So I'm really amazed from what you have told us here. and I hope that Nicholas is on the same page as me here.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Brian. Thank you, Rod, for joining us. It was a pleasure, and I hope that someone will see this video and hopefully get some motivation to start in IT or starting whatever they would like to do, and go and apply for that first job.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Thank you
again.
so much. I appreciate it. Like I said earlier, I'm happy to mentor. It's extremely impactful and valuable, and I love that. I love to see the next generation. Love to see what you're all going to do with this generative AI stuff. Who knows? Maybe you will build my droid.
Let's see. Maybe someone who will watch this podcast will be actually motivated to do that, or to do something more than that, even.
Yeah.
So
Now,
we are here.
if a droid shows up on my doorstep next week, I'll be super happy.
Exactly. So thank you everyone for joining us at this time, and this was our last episode for this season of NextGen Heroes. So we're gonna take a break for a few months. Have a good summer holiday, and we are gonna see you again from September onwards with our third season of NextGen Heroes. So until then, enjoy, relax, and of course have a amazing summer. Thank you again, and see you everyone.
See you.